Dashin. Oh, Dashin, not Dashin. Right. Maybe that was the issue. Let's try this again. Is 2:48:53 the world record? I actually thought I got a better run yesterday, but maybe I didn't save the splits. But I do have the current record. I don't know what it is exactly. I think it is. But I think I actually got a better run yesterday too. Oh well, it shouldn't be too difficult to beat either way. Currently this run here is very much still in fluctuation of how the route should work out one way or another, just based on there being a new skip, and we are not entirely sure which approach for magic leveling, enemy behavior, enemy boss strategies, and even early game routing and sequencing is how it's supposed to go. Oh. I didn't submit mine, Dracothos, but thank you. And greetings, XF, how are you doing? So, let's get this going again. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be limited chat interaction during this run, because I'm trying to do a full commentary run of this run, so I can replace my current HDQ submission for it. So, let's just get going. First of all, this is going to be the one player, one controller category, which is substantially different from the two controller category, because, well, there are various things you cannot do with just one controller. Also, normally you would choose a single character name for your main character, but in this case, I will be using a full name just suggested by the chat. So, alright. To give you a brief overview, there are, generally speaking, 4 categories that are represented on the leaderboards for Secret of Mana. The first one is any percent, or as we like to call it, magic percent, which just goes after 8 minutes, calls an arbitrary event execution and just calls the ending by using a rather obscure glitch. We straight up banned that glitch in most other categories, since it's not terribly interesting to just run a game for 8 minutes and then that's it. So we don't use the arbitrary event execution, but everything else instead. Then we have the one player category with one controller, which is what I'm going to be running here. One player, two controller, or one player, multiple controllers, and co-op categories, which are more or less the same in terms of strategy, although co-op is usually slightly different how you can approach it, because multiple human people or human players are way more efficient than AI controlled characters. Then we have the quote-unquote glitchless category, which just tries to play the game as it was intended. So, back to one controller. The two biggest reasons why this is very different from two controllers, or multiple controllers for that matter, is that one controller, you cannot do all the tricks and glitches, or you cannot do them in the same way or the same efficiency. So for the most part, one controller is just strictly more difficult or more tricky to do and execute compared to two controllers. We do use some magic to defeat some bosses along the way, because the overcharge attacks and other tricks are less reliable. There is one major skip that we cannot do with just one controller, it requires multiple ones. And also there will be other things that we are doing just based on how the sequencing works of this game. The plot of this game, to give you a brief overview, is we are this little boy, he falls down a waterfall somewhere, picks up a sword, and suddenly boom, he's the chosen hero. It is a rather generic plot, plus we are doing it either out of sequence or we skip large sequences, so it's kind of difficult to keep track of. But it's your standard, he is the hero kind of quest. We kill monsters to become stronger, and we also kill monsters to level up our weapons, and that is going to be why I'm killing those enemies here. So I kill those guys because I want to level up my weapon. 11 enemies total will level up my sword to level 2. This is number 3. And I will aim to level up my sword before I enter the Dwarven village. So, 4 and 5, 6 and 7. Where are you going? 8 and 9. So, in the bottom you see the stamina meter. You can only run while your stamina bar is fully loaded, so to speak. And your attacks do substantially less damage if your stamina bar is not full. So it's almost always better to just straight up wait until your stamina bar is full, unless you know the enemy only needs 1 or 2 more damage to be defeated. So, alrighty. We are arriving back at the first village, where we also will basically immediately fight the first boss. The first boss is Mantis Ant, and the easiest and fastest way to defeat him is you just straight up face him and battle him. You don't care about the damage you take, since your stamina bar is refilling anyways, so you lose a very small amount of time compared to dodging those attacks. And standing in front of him, not too far away, will make the Mantis Ant use his quickest attack pattern. That way you can also quickly attack him again. So that is the short version of this here. I just need to time my attacks properly, otherwise my attack will be deflected by the sickles on his arms, where I cannot hurt him as long as he has them in front of him. Oh, I just got my critical hit, nice. So, whacked is when you land a critical hit. Early game you have only something like a 2% chance to land a critical hit, so it's really rare, and that was really lucky that I just got one, because that saves me about 4 seconds. So, after we defeat the boss, we get a weapon orb. In this case, a sword orb. Orbs are used to upgrade your weapon, and the weapons... well, you can only level them up if you upgrade them on the smith sufficiently. Currently I can level up the sword to level 1, which is what I'm aiming to do, and I will aim to level it up to level 2 after I upgrade it at the smith. And that's as far as the weapon goes, because we have a glitch that will allow us to just abuse that level 2 alone and deal substantial damage to them. Alrighty, this knight over there, it's Gemma. He tells you, hey, you have the mana sword, you better come over to the water palace, where we will instruct you further about how you go on your journey and, well, essentially how you can become the hero of this quest and seal all the mana seeds, power up the mana sword and defeat all the enemies. I will be keeping less and less track of the plot just based on, well, we skip a lot of it and we do it out of sequence a lot. So here we get banished from our village, and we can no longer return into Poros. Well, at least that's what they would think, but there are various ways to get back in here. Either way, there is not much point in returning back in here. Still need to level up my sword. And we move on. By the way, if you see me wiggle or do weird movement like this, that is in general... Oh, no enemy? Weird. That is in general to manipulate spawns and enemy behavior. So I despawned too many enemies there because I still lack some skills I want to do. Let's go, Daishin! No, let's not go. In fact, this is all I wanted to do here. I will go up to the water palace, see Gemma walk into the water palace area, and then I just go away. What that does for me is, over here on the right side, there is the cannon travel guy. Cannon traveling is this world's standard way of flying and traversing through the areas. And when you try to go here before you talk to Gemma in front of the water palace, he will just kind of tell you, hey, Gemma already paid for the water cannon travel to the water palace. Just hop right into the cannon. And yes, that's kind of normal around here apparently. So you didn't have the choice to go to Gaia's Navel, which is where we're going. And this is how the out of order early game sequence begins. This is not something you do in one player 2 controller, because overall it's actually not... it's slightly slower than doing this in sequence. However, we will get an item early doing it like this, thanks to it being out of sequence. But more about that a bit later. So first of all, this here is Nico. He is the traveling merchant and salesman that you find in many games. He literally asks for double the price for every single item. But money is thankfully not an issue in this game, since we can just trick the game into letting us, well, sell literally nothing. What I just did here is a sequence of actions which allows me to sell exactly nothing. So it looks like I'm selling some weird chocolate that was previously in Nico's inventory ring. What I'm doing in reality is I just sell nothing that created a corrupted item called Blat. And that Blat is just kind of weird. So I will be doing two tricks with this here. One is I will gain a ton of money just for the rest of the game basically. And the other one is I'm going to create 2 stacks of items in my inventory of barrels and fairy walnuts. I'm also going to supply myself with all the other consumable items, medical herbs to remove status effects, a couple of wishes to revive people, and royal jam, and chocolate to heal. Alright, then I removed the corrupted items from my inventory. Those blats are now gone, and that allows me to buy 2 more stacks of fairy walnuts and barrels. Also, I only bought 2 of each of those items. So, by the way, because this is a marathon type run and I don't want to restart this early game again, I'm just going to briefly save. So. Alrighty. I bought 2 of each of the items. Your normal limit in Seeker of Mana is 4 items per stack. Which means you could normally only have a maximum of 4 fairy walnuts, 4 barrels, etc. So that is by far not enough for our purposes, because I don't want to replenish them too often. And in fact, I actually can replenish those items reasonably quickly, but it's still faster to just create multiple stacks of them in my inventory. And on top of that, I will be doing another trick to even multiply those items. More about that in a second. So those slime enemies here are actually kind of tricky to get past. And those goblins here, I think for the actual GDQ run I would just kill them instead of risking to get killed. Because those enemies can just straight up combo you, and there's nothing you can do about that outside of, well, hope they don't kill you. In a real run you just open a chest and, well, you hope and pray. Either way, that's also why I saved just before going in here, since even without risking those 2 goblins, it's very easy to die in the early game. Just because you are still low level, you have basically no armor, and well, that's pretty much how that works. So, hit the switch here, and finally we get into the Dwarven village. By the way, we can moonwalk in this game. Whee! So what I'm going to be doing here is activate 2 plot triggers. One is upgrading my weapon at Watts, and the other one is visiting the theater. Those 2 are required to progress the plot enough to summon the next boss in this village. So upgrading the weapon also has the convenient effect that I now can start leveling up my weapon towards level 2. Which also means, leveling up weapons, you can hold your attack button, which is the B button, to charge up a weapon attack. Each level takes about 3 seconds to charge up, and will deal 50% more damage. So for level 2, we would be charging up for about 6 seconds and deal 100% more damage, for example. So here I'm going to buy some more basic items. Power wrists. They help you deal damage because they increase your strength by 5. Also a substantial defense increase. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I also bought quote-unquote way too many armor items for just equipping them. But armor items are what I use to manipulate my inventory amount numbers. So as I mentioned earlier, well, going to equip stuff. As I mentioned earlier, I bought 2 of each of the items for consumables like cups of wishes, medical herbs and stuff. What I did here now is I stood in a very specific place in that corner over there, and then I equipped armor and then trashed it away. Equipped armor, trash it away, equip armor, trash it away, etc. What that does is... Let me backtrack a bit. What the game tries to do is unequip that armor item from your character and then delete it. What it does instead is it manipulates certain values in the memory based on where you're standing on the screen. So I can stand in different position on the screen and change different values within a limited region. So I can unfortunately not control which items I have, for example, but I can control how many items I have to an extent. More specifically, I can reduce the amount of items I have in my inventory by 2 each. So since I only bought 2 of each of the items, I now have, well, 0 of each of the items. Since they are still in the inventory and I can still select them, they will just underflow up to 7. So in short, I now have 8 of each of the items in my inventory for my use. So that means I have 2 times 8 barrels and 2 times 8 fairy walnuts for usage later. Fairy walnuts, by the way, are magic point recovery items. Barrels are just overpowered. Barrels is probably one of the more unique items that this game has to offer, which you will see plenty of. So what barrels do... By the way, this is the Tropicalo, the second boss, or also what I like to call him, the fruit salad. He is a pretty standard procedure. He is supposed to dive down and burrow after every time you hit him, but if you time your attacks well, you can just hit him twice per cycle. So, alrighty, barrels in this game, they give you complete invulnerability to physical attacks, and they also have more properties to them. It's kind of strange on how it works. So, if you are lucky, you can get a 4 cycle on the Tropicalo, but in this category we are 1 level lower with the boy compared to the 1 player 2 category, and though it's a lot less likely for that to happen. So it's usually 5 cycle. And Tropicalo down. We get a spear orb, and you might be wondering, wait, we didn't even get a spear. Yep, we didn't get a spear, because the spear weapon is which you would get in the Water Palace. We have not visited the Water Palace cutscene yet. We will do so shortly, but once again out of order, out of sequence, etc. Here is where we meet our second party member, and he will stay the only party member for a while. This is the sprite, and we did decide that we call him Jinx, because why not? So, alrighty. Hey brother, I'm Dashian. He's named a little sprite, and we name him Jinx. Because why not? So, Jinx joins our party, and we will immediately start doing some more shenanigans. As mentioned earlier, by throwing away items that I have currently equipped, I can manipulate values in my inventory. So in this game, you can choose your weapon based on which weapons you have found so far. So we just received bow and arrow, so we could equip those. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to equip the sword on the sprite, and then do some more shenanigans. So I have the sprite on a specific X position. And now I'm going to equip his basic equipment, so he has some defense, oopsie. And then I throw away his armor before I do anything else. What that does for me is it allows me to remove his sword from his hand. Or more specifically, I unequip the sword instead of the armor equipment item that I just trashed. Which, of course, the game doesn't expect you to do. Also here we get an axe item from Watts, and he also gives us a shortcut outside, which is quite nice. That is just what you have to do by plot anyways, by the way. So, we now have 2 swords. You cannot normally have 2 swords on 2 different characters in this game, but because I unequipped the sword on the sprite, it allowed me to equip it again on the boy. So the sword is slightly stronger because we upgraded it earlier at Watts' place, and we can level it to level 2. And that is going to be the goal for the sprite as well as the boy. It doesn't quite matter yet to have the sprite's weapon level to level 2, but I will aim to give him more experience than the boy, since he is a little bit behind. There is a point in the game where I will be wanting to have both characters have 2 levels in... well, 2 level 2 levels in the weapons. Oh, whoopsie. And that will be very, very useful. Oh, that's a nice crit. So, I aim to give those flowers over to the sprite. The boy is too high level to gain full weapon experience from the flowers, however the sprite still gains full weapon experience from them, so it's more efficient to give the flowers over to the sprite. Alright, and so we move on. What you're not supposed to do next is visit Eleni's forest, encounter your next party member, the girl, in the forest, which would then subsequently join your party, and you go on a journey through the Eleni's forest. And, well, get to Eleni. Why we get to Eleni? Well, she has somehow control over Pandora, she's a witch, something like that. We do everything out of sequence, we have no clue what we are doing, but we're just running there. So, what I'm going to be doing here is I will take the back entrance to Eleni's forest. And here is one of the really big weirdnesses of this game. I block the sprite in there, charge up my weapon, sword weapon, to level 1, which executes a launch attack. See. And then I switch character really quick. This is way easier with two controllers, by the way. I swap my characters really quick, use a barrel on the boy, then hit the rope pole as I'm moving through here. So, as mentioned, that is something we do in... well, did I mention that? Whatever. This is something we do in the one-player, one-controller category as well. However, doing it with one control is substantially more difficult, just because you have to swap character really quick, use an item to block the character's movement just for long enough so you can actually hit the rope pole. What hitting the rope pole does for you is it allows you to walk through walls. So the normal use of those rope poles is you have a whip weapon, which you would only get after defeating the spiky tiger in this castle in here. And you basically need to stand in the correct position, gather your party, and then use the hit a rope pole for it to work. However, there are different methods to doing this quickly and rather efficiently, to say the least. So I just accidentally got the boy moved here. That's slightly unfortunate, but not terrible. Alrighty. Through here. So with that whip you could just basically hook on the rope pole on the other side of the place and then just jump across. That's the idea anyways. So the sprite here would get comboed, but I just use a barrel to make sure the sprite doesn't take more damage than necessary. Also, somehow the barrel can attack wolves, which is weird. The barrel is technically a weapon and has some odd attacks, which is actually something I'm going to be abusing later. So here is where we should have 3 characters, and you may see in the text box, the text boxes are really messed up. There's one character named Go 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 Go. That is the lady's name by default if you never give her a name. It's kind of strange to say the least, and that's how it works. So moving on, moving on. So, alrighty. That's good. That's exactly what I'm aiming for. So, my levels 2, sword is now level 2, and that's exactly what I've been looking for. And I'm also giving the sprite more and more experience, so he will reach level 2 within a short amount as well. That's the goal. So there are 2 more chairs here that I want to defeat. Chairs are actually really dangerous if you let them get out of control. So you definitely don't want to do that. Here we have Eleni, which tries to feed us to her pet. But we have different plans. What I'm going to be doing here is I use a barrel on the sprite, and once again, barrels are very overpowered in this game. They completely shield you from any physical attacks whatsoever. Even some attacks that look like spells are physical, so the sprite should be completely safe in this encounter. What I'm going to be doing is I will move the boy into a specific position and then set some AI behavior. I will tell the AI behavior to charge up the weapon to level 1, and then I will do some more magic right after this. So what the AI does when I tell it to charge out to level 1 weapon is it will engage in combat and get close to an enemy enough to hit the boss with just his weapon and basically simulate a charge-up attack, because you have to hold the B button. Normally you start charging. So he's at level 1, I tell the AI to start charge to level 2, then I tell the AI to charge to level 1 again. And that might look really weird because it is kind of strange. What I did there is I just one-shot one of the more difficult bosses that you can encounter casually. Spiky Tiger has something like 540 hit points, I don't actually know how much exactly. And I just did that amount of damage really easily in one swing. What I did is I overcharged a weapon. The way I did this is I told the AI to charge up the weapon to level 2, and then after it was charged up to level 2, I told the AI to charge up only to level 1, which confuses the game severely. It starts increasing the charge level every other frame by 1, just because it has no idea what else to do. And to give you a frame of reference, I attacked the Spiky with something like a charge level 70 or 90 or 80, I don't know how much exactly it was. But your normal maximum charge level is 8. And that is in the very, very late game, and it takes you something like 24 seconds to charge up all the way to 8. And I just did this in less than 10 seconds with a level 90 charge attack or something like that. So that's what we did there. Spiky Tiger has been defeated. Once again, if you see the text boxes with go 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 go, that is the lady's name if you never give her a name. The reason for that is kind of simple to write down, but kind of difficult to explain. The short version is her default value for the names slot is occupied by the maximum amount, the highest possible number. And the highest possible number just corresponds to go 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 go. Which, by the way, that costs us a substantial amount of time over the course of the game, since each letter in the name does cost us quite some time until it is displayed, as in 1 frame per character. So I think we lose something like 40 or 50 seconds over the course of the game, just because that name is so long. But it should still save me some time overall. Oh, that didn't work. Okay. So what I'm going to be doing here is more out of order sequencing stuff. What you're normally supposed to do is go and save Andini from being kidnapped, but we have different plans. Watch the guard. Boom, there are suddenly 2 guards. What I did is I entered Pandora after defeating the Spiky Tiger. Spiky Tiger sets a flag in Pandora that tells it, oh, okay, you should start letting a weird NPC run around in town that normally is called Fanna, and she behaves like a zombie. That's what it does. How you normally then progress later on is... oh, already leveled up, nice. How you normally progress later on is by then talking to Fanna. She suddenly disappears, and you visit her in the ruins to the right. What I'm doing here is I deliberately delayed this cutscene here until now. Because what this cutscene does is it progresses the Pandora plot. Pandora is the city I just briefly entered and left again. This cutscene here progresses the Pandora plot by one element, so to speak. So I initiated the Pandora plot at a higher number than the game expects. Fanna is already running around there, which is not normally the case once you visit this cutscene the first time. So, what happens now is Fanna, instead of being running around in town, she will already be in front of the ruins, and we can talk to her and actually get into the Pandora ruins way too early, and fight the bosses in there. After that boss, we will get to the Kilroy, to the Jabberwocky, and then we will get finally to rescue Andini and Firegigas. So you will see why that's a thing, but in short, you are not supposed to have multiple characters getting into this cutscene here, which is indicated by your second character just weirdly walking behind you instead of being spread out like they are usually in cutscenes. Also, we are actually controlling the sprite here, whereas normally Luca would just only be talking to the boy. So the game gets really confused. So yeah, and good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to anyone who has entered recently. Welcome everybody. I'm doing a full commentary run here, or a run attempt. Also saving and resetting here real quick, because that saves me 2 text boxes. Also, if you noticed, we didn't get the spear weapon. You never get the spear weapon if you do the out of order early game sequence. So yeah, welcome everybody. I'm doing a full commentary, so my chat interaction is going to be a bit limited today. I hope you're having a nice evening. So, I don't have to worry about defeating any more enemies. The sprite already leveled up the weapon substantially higher or early than I usually have him level up the weapon, but that's okay. So, I'm just moving on here. Alright, we are going back into Pandora, and as mentioned, the plot triggers are now already set. I equipped the weapon back on the boy, and then I set his AI behavior back to start charging your weapon up to level 1, instead of level 0. Whenever you change a weapon back to a weapon that you don't have leveled up yet, like the whip is still level 0, the AI couldn't charge up to level 1 even if it tried to. So it's just programmed that it resets the AI behavior to charge up back to 0 only, which is actually kind of convenient. So the way you normally start charging a weapon is you just hold the attack button, which kind of makes sense. But what that means is usually that you're just swinging your weapon, and then after you are releasing your stamina back to 100%, it will charge up to your weapon. So, which takes quite a while to do. In order to circumvent that, if you are manually charging up your weapon, you can usually just do a simple thing. You hold the B button when you go through a sequence or a door transition, etc. However, for the AI to start charging the weapon, they usually need an enemy close by, as in they need to engage in combat, so to speak. What I just did there is I briefly released the boy back to AI control, and then I let him swing, starting to charge up his weapon. And then I took over the boy again. What that does is it sets the AI's charge flag to true, which means it will start charging its weapon as soon as it is in a combat area again. As long as I keep control over the boy, it will not charge up, but as soon as I switch over my control back to the sprite, the little guy, the boy will be starting to charge up his weapon, which is quite important for the upcoming boss, since I want to hit him and destroy him as early as possible. The next boss here is the Wallface, And he is actually kind of irritating to deal with because he is the first boss who has an evasion rating, which means 40% of the time my attacks will just straight up whiff, and there's nothing I can do about that. Okay. This is kind of awkward because now it will heal. So I actually managed to hit the middle portion, which is the main portion you want to hit, but unfortunately it happened to deflect my attack by okay. It happened to deflect my attack by just straight up not dealing enough damage, which is kind of rare to happen. Alright, there we go. So there are high and low damage rolls in this game. About 20% of the time I get a low damage roll, and that will just not deal enough damage to defeat the wall phase here. But it's not too bad, it just takes a while until I can recover. This is one of the bigger difficulties compared to two controllers. You cannot just restart your charge attack as you please, you have to redo your overcharge. In one player 2 controller, you can just open up the menu to buffer which charge attack you get and carefully choose without too much trouble. It's still kind of precise timing, but rather easy to do. In one controller, I just release the attack and hope it's going to be the correct one for the most part. Also, in one controller, I cannot just keep the current charge level, which you can do in two controllers. What I can do is I can try to keep the charge level by switching to the character who is currently overcharging, as in switching from the sprite to the boy in this case. And then immediately after I switch, hold the B button. So sometimes you see the sprite hitting empty for no reason. That is when I tried to hit select and immediately after the B button, but my timing was slightly off. So I have between 0 and 4 frames, it's random based on my frame cycle, how many frames I get to do this kind of sequence in action. So I try to keep the charge attack in case I miss against the wall phase. As I said, 40% of the time it's just a straight up miss, which by the way, you may have thought, hey, you're way too far away from the wall to hit him, but in reality I was actually close enough. It's just the game decided to, well, you're just dodging now, so can't hit it. Impossible. So there's that. I'm not sure I just did. I needed to set the charge flag before going down here. I think the boy still has the charge flag now, so as soon as I release the boy's attack or release the boy to AI control in the next boss battle, he is going to be back there. So the out of order early game continues. What you normally do after you defeat the wall phase is Luca tells you, hey, the mana seed has been stolen, you need to retrieve it, and you find those thieves here who have stolen the mana seed. Then after that you bring it back to the water palace, where the Empire waits and tries to do some shenanigans with the water seed until you defeat their little pet, the Jabberwocky. However, this sequence is only supposed to happen after you defeat the Fire Gigas. The Fire Gigas is going to be a little bit later than this one here now. So alright, let's see whether the boy still has the charge. Otherwise I need to improvise a bit. Alright, let's improvise a little bit. So what I did there is, once again, I set the charge flag, then I took control over the boy and just led him into a different direction entirely. Alright, this didn't work, unfortunately. So I let him charge again, which, by the way, once again, this is kind of tricky to do, just based on it being an AI-controlled character. So I have to charge again, and 2 misses. That is rather unfortunate. There's nothing I can do about me actually straight up missing. That's the 40% chance of either hitting or not hitting. There is no other magic to this. Okay, I should have the charge. There we go. And just straight up one shot. Either way, there is no real risk involved in this entire sequence. By the way, we just skipped the whiteout by hitting this door transition trigger at the bottom multiple times. At the same frame, it tried to go to the next place. Or, well, try to do the whiteout. Now that saves a few seconds. You can only do this in a select few places. And well, this is what we do to defeat the Kilroy. On Kilroy and Jabberwocky and the Wallface previously usually have already 2 schools of magic and just use magic against them in more casual plays to defeat them. We just use overcharge attacks to defeat them, usually rather quickly. In this case it was a bit awkward because they decided to dodge, but nothing particularly dangerous for that matter. So, after you retrieve the mana seed of water from the thieves, you bring it back to the water palace. And let me give you a quick overview what you do in a normal sequence of the game. So you get banished from your village, you go to the water palace, experience the cutscene and know what you need to do next. You go to Gaia's Navel, where you meet the sprite and also gain the axe, which you can use to then go through Eleni's forest, meet the lady along your way, and then defeat the Spiky Tiger. After Spiky Tiger, you get informed by Luca that the patron of water, Undine, has been kidnapped. You free Undine, and then with Undine's help you can actually go into the Earth Palace. After the Earth Palace you go to Pandora and see that there is some suspicious activity going on. By the way, once again setting a charge flag there. And you enter the Pandora ruins, defeat whatever is in there, the Wallface, and also see that the lady's boyfriend and her childhood friend Vanna were kidnapped and just brought away. Then after that you go to the Kilroy and do this sequence here that we are currently doing. Retrieve the mana seed and defeat the Jabberwocky here. Alrighty. Jabberwocky here, once again, just give control to the AI control character. Let him charge up his weapon. And whiff, unfortunately. By the way, you may wonder, this was way too far away, right? No, it wasn't. It actually could have hit if the 40% chance didn't kick in there. What is actually happening on the baseline is bosses have a substantially larger hitbox than what you might expect. Or to... actually, no. That's not entirely true. It's actually that in boss fights, your melee weapons have twice the reach compared to normal fights. So, because of that, and some bosses also have really wacky hitboxes, for example the Jabberwocky is one of them, so it's kind of tricky to try and find the correct sequence. So we seal the mana seed here again, and we talk to Luca, and now we could finally go to the upper lands and explore the further areas, if we wanted to do that. However, we have different plans, because since we did the early game out of order, we still don't have Undine or Gnome for casting spells, as in we literally cannot cast any spells right now, which we need to progress through the later portions of the game. So here, once again, let the boy set up his charge flag, walk a little bit away from this enemy since it's kind of tricky to do this otherwise. And here is where I start using the target command. The target command allows me to tell the AI control character which enemy to attack, and also makes it substantially easier for them to actually hit enemies. So I have 2 ways to release my charge attack. One is to just switch to that character, and also can at the same time try to retain the charge attack for 1 more attack, as in a maximum of 2. Or I can just use the target command and tell them to attack. The target command is usually more reliable for AI control character to actually hit the boss. And in this case, you just need to hit the boss once. Bosses right now, Fire Gigas and the little lizard guy, they have no evasion rating, since they are supposed to become before you defeat the wall face. And so, with this in mind, we just gained Undini's power. Also, I used a magic rope before walking into the cutscene trigger with Undini, so the cutscene played at the beginning of the cave. I almost skipped over that because that's so normal to me by now. So the sprite and the girl can still move while the magic rope, which by the way brings you to the entrance of an area, is playing. So now you might think, okay, where do you go next? We go to Gaia's Novel, but why don't we just take the cannon travel to go back to Gaia's Novel like we've done twice before already? The reason for that is a bit silly, to say the least. In order for you to progress the plot normally further, is you go to the upper lands by using the cannon travel center. However, the issue with that is one of the cannon travel locations has been replaced by the upper lands, and that happens to be Gaia's Novel. So instead of being able to select either Gaia's Novel or... Hang on a second. So instead of being able to select Gaia's Novel or the Water Palace, you can now select the Upper Lands or the Water Palace for cannon travel locations. Why they didn't replace the Water Palace and they replaced Gaia's Novel instead is beyond me. Either way, it's about 20 seconds faster to run over here instead of trying to use the cannon travel in a different way. So what you could do is you travel to the Upper Lands, and then from the Upper Lands you can cannon travel back to Gaia's Novel directly. But that's about 20 seconds slower than just going over here instead. By the way, earlier I got hit by a Sleep Flower spell, and I just removed the Sleep Flower spell's effect of, well, making your character unconscious by using a medical herb item right away on my character. So there are various ways... Oh, don't forget. Hang on a second. This is the main reason here, by the way, why we do the early game out of order. This guy, after you defeat the Jabberwocky, will give you the Mitch Mallet. This is the main reason why we do the early game out of order in different sequence. The Mitch Mallet allows you to pygmy or minimize one of your characters. What that does for you is they will have heavily reduced armor, but also spellcasters like the sprite or the lady, when they are tiny people, their animation is substantially faster to cast spells. As in, it's so much faster that it's actually worth to lose a little bit of time in making your early game out of order or out of sequence to get it early. Otherwise you would normally just backtrack here once you acquire your flying companion Flammy and then get over here. So we move on here. And this is probably a good place to mention that the current route for one player, one controller is anything but set in stone. We don't really know whether the... as in just recently-ish, let's put it that way, we found a new way to implement one of the old skips into the game. Also, let me set the AI character level here again. We found a new way to do one of the old early game skips into the game again. That's unfortunate that the sprite got captured there. So, voice charge like I said again. That's nice. And what that does is you require substantially less magic spells to run through the game. Which also means we kind of have to reroute the entire early game in the first place. So which route, whether certain things are still faster, which spell schools we want to use that are faster is still kind of up in the air. Boom. And Fire Gig is done. Fire Gigs can actually be quite a menace, since if you miss your first charge attack, you are a bit in trouble, as he tries to target all of your party members with his spells. Because we only have 2 instead of 3 party members, and those 2 characters take substantially more damage from just area of effect targeted spells. So we need to be kind of careful about that. But this guy here for once actually went well, so that's nice. Alrighty. So here we complete the Earth Temple, we acquire the Summon Spirit Gnome, we can now cast Earth spells with the Sprite and the Lady. And we also seal the Mana Seed. By the way, these Mana Seeds here, they are not just plot triggers or plot elements. In fact, you could just straight up skip this one if you wanted to. But they do also 2 other things for you. For one, they slightly increase your stats like magic attack power, defense, straight up attack power, etc. Which is a really nice boost to do a fair bit more damage. But more importantly, really, they also allow you to level up your spells to a higher level. So currently, before I sealed the Earth Seed there, I could only level up the spells up to a maximum of 1. Now we can level up the spells to a maximum of 2. And since we do actually use spells to deal with certain bosses, this is going to be quite convenient and handy. So, and with this we have the early game complete out of order. And we move on to the upper lands. Here I'm going to give the boy the axe weapon, because he will need the axe weapon a fair bit later, but right now it's just kind of nice to give him the axe weapon instead of him having to constantly slash at enemies. Remember, oh, I actually kind of skipped over that, didn't I? Remember, if you try to charge up a weapon, what you do as a human player, you just hold the B button. When you hold the B button, your character will initially slash and just load up his weapon to 100%. And then you start charging the weapon. AI control characters do simulate that behavior, like just slashing before they start charging. But because you try to go fast and just drag your AI control character behind you one way or another, they then subsequently try to catch up, and then as soon as they see enemies just sufficiently close enough, they will start trying to charge up again and stop you quite a bit, because they constantly slash at enemies for no good reason at all. Which is also one of the big reasons why co-op runs are, well, a lot smoother. This is the one player, one controller category, so we don't do that for now. Alrighty, off we go. We have 2 magic spirits in, well, for use, so for 2 specific elements. We have 2 mana seeds sealed, and we arrived in the Forest of Seasons. What we do here is we talk to one of the Muggles, and they will tell us that the Pebblers, the mean Pebblers, have taken over their village, and we try to, well, somehow help the little Pebblers, the little Muggles. So the Pebblers are little hedgehog Sonic type guys, and well, they are really not nice, because instead of you being able to easily deal with them, oopsie, that was a mistake, whatever. Instead of you being able to easily deal with them by just using weapon attacks, you kind of have a fair bit of trouble trying to hit them. So what effectively happens is that those little pebbler guys, they have really high physical evasion. In fact, pretty much the exact same level of evasion as bosses have. So for consistency, it's way easier to just straight up use spells to deal with those guys instead of trying to use physical attacks to deal with them. You could technically one-shot all of them with just a weapon overcharge attack, but that is really inconsistent to do. So you'd rather just use spells instead to deal with them. Maybe eventually I will try to get more fancy in the actual record attempts and deal with them with physical charge attacks, or maybe the spells will not be quite as wasted, since currently we don't really use Andini as our main spell, and so those spell attacks that I just did there are just kind of, well, not that efficient. No only deals half damage against the peddlers, and even though I would like to level up the gnome spells, they just don't deal much damage to those guys in the first place. Alrighty, we walk through the seasons and suddenly arrive where the Springbeak is residing. So, by the way, once again, I pygmy the sprite so he can cast spells faster. That is the goal here for now. I just start casting gnome spells here. And more specifically, I cast Chem Missiles instead of Earth Slides. Earth Slides do strictly more damage, but Chem Missiles are cheaper. So this makes it easier for me to level up Gnome and deal substantially higher damage later on. Springbeak himself requires quite a bit of spell attacks. So I need to constantly refill the sprite's magic pool. So I'm pretty sure with this I should be basically almost done with dealing with the Springbeak here. I still refill the sprite's magic pool, which I should not have done from this stack of fairy walnuts. That was actually a mistake. I'll have to correct later. So alright, this should easily do the trick. So the Springbeak is weak against Earth Elemental. Really weak. But because Gnome, the Earth Element, was not leveled up yet, it didn't do quite that much damage. But now that it's at level 1, and then later on at level 2, it will start dealing more and more substantial damage, and be way more reliable, and in some certain situations even quicker than using weapon overcharge attacks. So, sealing another mana seed, gain a little bit more of a boost in spell power and other types of damage, allow me also to level up the spells to further than level 2, up to level 3. Here we get a little bit more plot element. This is the village where the sprite originally came from, but unfortunately, well, people are no longer here, and mana is getting weaker and weaker. Plot elements are just essentially telling us, alright, here, have this wind spirit sylph, now you can cast wind spells and go on your journey, save the world, please. So that is pretty much the gist of it. Come back whenever you're tired. Let me fix it. Save the game? No, thank you. But that fixing up actually healed the sprite's magic points as well, which is quite nice. So I don't have to worry about it until later. Alrighty, here we move on through this case over here. If you could somehow figure out a way to get past this section here, we may be able to skip Sylph, but that's kind of unlikely in the one-player, one-controller category in the first place, since we do need Sylph later on anyways. Since technically speaking, I did not even have to seal the mana seed in the Wind Palace, you can just literally ignore that and go on if you really want to. It's just not recommended, at least not if you are going to use magic in any capacity. So we're just moving on here, and they decide to confuse the boy. Confusion status is mostly just annoying. You cannot cast spells during it, but the more annoying portion about it is most of the time just that your controls are straight up inverted, as in if you press up you go down, etc. And that even counts in the menus, which is a bit strange. You can remove the confusion status by using medical herb, which I might do in the upcoming section. Even though it's just mostly annoying, there are certain enemies that react to certain status effects of yours in certain ways. Like in this section here, there are a lot of owl enemies. Those owl enemies, not those ones, the small ones. I'm going to wait here. Those small owls. Nice, that was actually really good spawns. They cast silence, more or less the first thing they ever see you do. So, as you can see, I just got silence there. And they will cast that more or less all the time whenever they spawn. So I try to spawn them off screen, wait a little bit, which I'm going to be doing in this next screen here. I wait a little bit off screen, hit this guy, and that way they didn't cast silence on me. If one of your characters is silenced in this area, those owls will really just mess up your character by constantly attacking him or her again and again and again, which makes it rather difficult to deal with. This is where we need Gnome to progress through the cave. Silence, and I'm just going to remove the silence effect here for simplicity. Also the boy needs to equip the sword, and also I tell him to start charging up his weapon to level 1 again. Also, the boy's sword has a bit of a weird color right now. That's okay. The color of the weapon is based on which weapon he had previously, which was the whip. Alright, this should work in theory. Alright. I tried to kill this guy with overcharge attacks, which is kind of tricky, to say the least. Because he does not always cooperate that way for it to be possible. I tried to use slowdown here to lock the Viper into place. That will allow me to have more time to, hopefully, not him running me over. And the Viper decided to just go away. It's pretty bad for me. Okay, the sprite is out of magic. Also kind of bad. So the boy will get hit here unless... oh well, he gets hit anyways, that's okay. Right has magic again, and I cast another slowdown. Oh, he's pygmate, that's unlucky. The Great Viper can sometimes just straight up pygmy you, which is rather irritating to deal with. Alright. Sprite unfortunately died there, so I need to revive him. But this was just one hit. So for the second hit I will, for simplicity, just use the element that you're normally supposed to use against the Great Viper. If he doesn't run away too far and I can actually target him with spells. So here, I'm just going to use Thunder in conjunction with some more physical attacks to deal with him. And there we go. So I just need once overcharge attack to hit the Great Viper. If I'm lucky, I can get a sequence of 2 hits immediately, but that requires a fair bit of luck and it's not terribly reliable. But just those weird physical hits in between were actually just enough to deal the rest of the damage in conjunction with some weak spells. So what happened there is essentially the Great Viper has 1260 HP, if I'm not mistaken, which is just over 999, which is the maximum amount of damage you can deal with a single attack. So no matter what, our overcharge attacks cannot one-shot the Great Viper. However, I can just delay him long enough to attack him once with an overcharge attack, which usually is faster than just straight up using Sylph spells to kill him. Usually. In this case, it would have probably been faster to just straight up use Sylph instead. But once again, the current route for the one player, one controller category is very much up in the air and to be optimized, in the sense that maybe it would be more efficient to use Sylph as our main damaging element at all. So you would just straight up use Sylph against the Great Viper, which has more uses later down the road on 2 different enemies as well, because it makes it easier to deal with other bosses that may not be necessarily faster, but so much more consistent that on average it would turn out to be faster anyways. On average. In theory, if you want to play it like this, or say it like this, in theory, beating all the bosses with overcharge attacks is the fastest possible way, but in one controller category that is so unlikely to be faster, since it requires a lot of setup and a good chunk of luck for it to work out, that just using some spells on various bosses is mostly more efficient and more effective. So, alrighty, we move on in our quest to find more palaces and more temples and more mana seeds to seal. We now have the option to either go to the desert island or desert place or to the ice country. The reason why we choose the desert place is because if you go to the ice country first, you would need to go back to the mushroom village and then fly from there over to the desert instead of being able to directly fly to the desert. That is because the mushroom village has a special trigger to fly to the Kakara desert, where you get lost and then picked up by the sand ship here, party is split and you find each other again on the sand ship. And this doesn't happen if you fly directly from the ice country, as in you literally cannot fly to the ice country unless you've done this cutscene with the sand ship already. So it is actually only very marginally faster to go to the desert first compared to going to the ice country first. But this here also allows us to do something else that may be a bit weird. So as I said, normally your party just straight up gets split up. The boy lands in the machine room, the sprite in the kitchen, and the lady is in the mayor's cabin. So we need to regroup ourselves after we get split up initially. Which also means, even though we never had the lady in our party in the first place, we will just meet her here, quote-unquote, again, and she will just join our party at level 1 with literally no equipment, and her weapon is also lost, because it never gets initiated. Her weapon that she brings, the claw weapon, and her equipment usually gets initiated once you give her a name. Since we never give her a name, and she just straight up joins us here, that never happens either. So we have neither the spear weapon nor the claw weapon, even if we wanted to use those, but we don't need those, it's okay. So the little plot is here that, well, you get picked up by a random sand ship and they think We are from the Imperium, or Imperial Spies, so apparently they are opposed to the Imperium, which are the big bad guys. And then the Imperium invades the Sand Ship, which this guy here, who is called Marcus, tries to really be not so nice to you. So here, I slow him down with slowdown, surprise. And try to have the Machine Rider stay just in place for long enough for me to defeat him with a spell and a overcharge attack combo. So now that I have 3 party members, managing the overcharge attacks and spells at the same time is a lot easier. So this is where we get the lady in our party, at least for this specific route. And this is also really convenient, because now I finally have more control over the entire battle, thanks to having more characters at my disposal. In the Desert City we also get some new equipment, which is really convenient since, well, the lady doesn't have any equipment in the first place. So we just give her some basics to start with. And also all of this equipment is really convenient to use. Because it will allow us to not only get more defense, but also refresh our inventory. So I'm going to show this real briefly in the next area, and also check whether I didn't mess up anything in my inventory management up to now. So what I'm going to be doing is I will equip everybody just by using the lady's equipment menu, and just transfer equipment, standard things. But I will also at the same time do the equipment trashing glitch that I did in the Dwarven Village. The difference between doing this with the lady compared to the boy is that you need to have an amount of 4 of the items in your inventory instead of just 2. So I stand in a specific position. Let me get it. Come on. I stand in a specific position on the screen. And let's see. I have 4 barrels and 4 fairy walnuts. That's good. I'm actually going to replenish that stock of barrels as well, so I'm just going to trash 3 sets of equipment. So, equip everybody here with some basic things, and also throw away the other helmets because we no longer need them. Throw this away, give this to the sprite, throw this away. So now I have 3 items trashed, which means my items, as you let me just show it to you, can see 0, 0 and 0. All of those items are now refreshed, and we can use them a total of 8 times again. So in the one controller category, we need to refresh those items about twice during the run, instead of just the initial run where we can do that. If you know how to set it up in the middle of nowhere, so to speak, it's also kind of nice, because you can do this in literally any place, you just know where to stand. And it's really nice, since this also gives the run a lot of safety, based on I never really run out of items to use or consumables, as long as I'm paying attention to not use up too many, so I can still refresh them. And that is the gist of it. I think the lady took there substantially more damage than she should. I wonder whether I messed up her equipment. Let me check this real quick. Yes, that equipped, yes, that equipped. No, I did it correctly, actually. Weird. I'm still not used to this kind of category, so I'm still learning. Alrighty, here also, this is the first time I want to overcharge with both the boy and the sprite. So what I'm doing here is I use a barrel on the lady, and then just have the other 2 guys start overcharging. You can do this with any character, you don't have to limit yourself to doing this with just the boy or just the sprite, for that matter. So I tell the boy to attack, I tell the sprite to attack at the same time, and if I'm a bit lucky, wow, or extremely unlucky for that matter, if I'm a bit lucky, we will be able to kill this guy in just one shot without him burrowing down. But that would require both attacks to hit at more or less the same time. Alright, we did kill him, but he was not spitting out a pumpkin. He would need to be spitting out a pumpkin currently for this to kill him without him burrowing down. So that was a small time loss. But once again, the same still applies as before. We have approximately 40% chance to miss the enemy outright. And it just so happens to be that we had hit the 16% chance that both the boy and the sprite missed at the same time, which is kind of odd. That doesn't happen too often. Well, statistically it happens once in a while, but you get what I mean. So here we get our next summon elemental, or, well, magic skill, so to speak. Fire, with Salamando. And what you're normally supposed to do in this area here is you're supposed to then subsequently go on to the Ice Palace, defeat the Ice Kickers. It turns out that was Santa. No, I'm not joking about that. And he will give you back the Mana Seed of Fire he stole from the Fire Palace. The reason why Santa stole the Fire Palace Mana Seed is because he wanted to grow the biggest Christmas tree of all time, so kids would start believing him again. No, once again, I'm not making that up. That's literally the plot. Either way, he had the Mana Seed of Fire, and so, well, we need to retrieve it, right? Well, not quite. Apparently, if you never know about the Santa actually stealing the Mana Seed of Fire, it never happens. Or, well, more specifically... Wrong way. More specifically, what I'm going to be doing is another little sequence break. So I mentioned at the beginning that this game keeps track of its plot events or sequence of things that should happen in numbers. What also happens is, normally you just traverse through the Fire Palace the normal way, go hitting all the switches, activate all the orbs, so you can actually go through the entire palace the normal way. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to climb a ramp, which you're not supposed to be able to climb. You're just supposed to be able to slide down that ramp and get outside, or actually not get up there. I'm going to be using a trick to get up that ramp, and that skips one of the orbs in the basement of the Fire Palace. What that does is it messes up the plot in the Fire Palace sufficiently enough that, as I said, the Mana Seed of Fire will have never been stolen, which is really convenient for us because we never actually need to retrieve it from the Ice Palace. So how we do this is this. I give a barrel to both the boy and the sprite. Then I go up here with the lady, cast a spell to heal everybody, switch to the sprite, then use another barrel on the lady, which I have to do from her menu, otherwise this doesn't work, switch to the lady and hold up. Boom. And we slide up the ramp there. So this used to be a far more ridiculous process to get up that ramp with one controller strategy. Since two controllers, you just use your regular charge attacks to rather easily get up the ramp without too much trouble. But recently-ish, after I discovered how to skip a major portion of the game with just one controller, I decided to start rerouting and routing this game. I happened to discover this trick with the barrels on how you can just do a power slide all the way up there. So with that barrel power slide, it is way more convenient to just climb that ramp using 3 barrels instead. Essentially what the game does is it kind of locks your velocity after you get healed in a barrel state in the same direction you're currently traveling, which makes for a really weird way of how the game handles things. Alright, unfortunately the boy did not want to cooperate. There we go. Rope pulls are weird. I just hit a rope pull. Oh, the boy's in the wall. That's awkward. Alright, I need to reset that room. Alright, there we go. So the rope pulls can do weird things. Whenever you tell an AI control character to move, they can still move while the rope pull lockdown is actually in place. The rope pull lockdown is a bit of an odd mechanic where if you hit a rope pull, the game will allow you to immediately walk through walls. Which... that's pretty convenient, isn't it? Well, that is really convenient. You cannot normally walk, but the AI control character, if you tell them to target an enemy, they can still walk through walls. So that makes that rather simple. So. Nice. With two overcharged characters, or with two characters that can overcharge their weapons, it is a lot easier to try and keep control of the Minotaurs. So the Minotaur, or Minoros, whatever you want to call him, he has no actual physical hitbox, which means you can straight up walk through him if you want to. And as long as a character stands right next to him, he will only ever use physical attacks. So I just use a barrel to, once again, completely negate all and every single physical attack. Also here is normally where you would have a text box, oh, the Mana Seed of Fire has been stolen, we need to get it back. Yeah, that's what's supposed to happen normally, but in our case, because we skipped the Mana Seed of Fire in the basement, we just kind of skipped that little trigger. Now I'm actually curious what happens when you complete the Fire Palace and then activate the seed in the basement and then go back into the main Fire Seed room. Oh well, okay. Sealing the Mana Seed of Fire is the next plot trigger that allows us to canon travel further into the Imperium's grasp. The Imperium being the big bad evil organization of this game, so to speak. The Empire, which is where we land in Southtown. So in Southtown there is another difference to two controllers, because we are actually going to talk to Mara. Mara in the Southtown is responsible for giving you the code so that you could actually tell the guy the code that lets you enter the sewer system so you can go through the sewers to Northtown. We don't actually need the code, but we are still going to ask Mara about it. The reason is, later on in the game we will need to talk to Mara again, and if we didn't talk to her right now already, we would need to talk to her twice in a rather awkward fashion, so it's just strictly faster to go to her now and ask her about the code, even though we don't need it. And why don't we need the code? Well, let's put it this way. There are two ways around that guy that asks you for the password. Either you can just repeatedly select through him, as in just switch your character and push your way through him, which is rather easy to do. Or what you can do otherwise is you can align yourself with the wall here. The boy is not aligned. Come on. Come on. A 50-50 chance every time I do this. There we go. The boy is now perfectly aligned with the wall, and I just straight up walk around the cutscene trigger where the man will block your entrance to the sewer system. Alrighty, here, through the sewers, I will be using some spells to make sure the enemies are not in my way. What the spells do for me is they will literally just hold the enemies in place. I don't care how much damage the spells deal, or whether they deal any damage in the first place. It's just so they don't actually hit me. Those blue slimes, if they hit you, they... Oh, that was wrong. Those blue slimes turn you into a snowman. I like snowman, but not those kinds of, because that's a pretty major time loss whenever you get turned into a snowman. So we just circumvent that by trying to hit them either, or cast spells on them. It's way more consistent to just cast a spell on them rather than trying to sneak past them. Even though sneaking past them would be technically a possibility if you're lucky enough. So, we move through the sewers, and we arrive in Northtown, where we join the rebellion force, so to speak, to rebel against the Empire, who, well, also apparently, oopsie, kidnapped Dialogue, the lady's girlfriend, by the way. He's the blonde guy in the orange dress that you see sometime soon. Either way, we move on to the next area. So the next area is a bit tricky to traverse, to say the least, as in... No, that's an understatement. It's actually quite difficult to get through the next area efficiently and quickly. And in a sense, that is kind of like Secret of Mana in a nutshell. You have a plan for literally every single room on how you want to get through it in this game. But depending on room, there is a very small or a slightly larger chance that something goes wrong and you will have to adjust on the fly. Which is also where it keeps the speedrun interesting even after you run it 1,000 times. I don't think I've run it 1,000 times, but whatever. It just is that little micro-optimization adjustment on the fly and always having to be ready about what is happening and what you're doing without it being too difficult to do, so to speak. By the way, just for reference, because the route here is still in fluctuation on how to do it efficiently, this is the first time that the sprite actually has charge level 1 set on his sword, which might mean it could be a bit more difficult for me to not get hit by everything, but we'll see about that. Also, by the way, it would be probably where I would give the commentary over to the host, at least for once. I probably will have to do that more often if this run will ever get into HDQ. But I'm just going to take this chance and say good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen in the stream. I hope you're having a nice day. And sorry for me not responding to you guys right now. I've been a bit focused on the game itself, trying to get a decent run and a decent commentary going, so I hope it's not too boring. Moving on. You always like the music in the ruins. Yeah, it's actually really special, to say the least. For me it was always kind of... it fits the place really well. I didn't necessarily like it as a music, although I can appreciate what it does. But it's just... it fits really well as just straight up music for the place to set the mood and the theme for this area. Also, I was wrong, this is not the first time the sprite is already charging up. I just remembered now. So this room here is one of the more difficult ones to run through properly. I managed to spawn an I Spy in the bottom left, which makes it way easier for me to not get hit by everything along the way, since there is only one of those little imp guys in the middle floating around. Two of those are quite a menace sometimes, as they are really strong and have substantially larger attack radii, so to speak. So here, I'm actually going to try and see whether I can use 2 overcharge attacks to deal with this guy. Normally I would just use spells to finish him off, but I've already casted so many spells that I'm going to try and see whether I can defeat him straight up. Wow, that actually worked. So once again, we use spells in one player, one controller for consistency, but if the chance arises to try and get in 2 overcharge attacks, or multiple ones for that matter, I will try to do so, since it can save a substantial amount of time compared to just try and straight up only use the save method. So for reference, It is even difficult to get in just one overcharge attack on the wall face, since it keeps opening and closing the eye and keeps messing up your character by casting many spells to occupy your character, so your control is limited. But in this case I was lucky enough to even get 2 charge attacks in. Normally I just bank on getting 1 and then finish off the rest of the wall phase with spells. Sometimes I even completely destroy the wall phase with spells in the first place. Alrighty, this is Dialogue, by the way, the lady's girlfriend. He has been taken over, brainwashed, and is still trying to be reasonable about it, one way or another. But he cannot really help us either, so we just try to make the best out of it. So, alrighty, here we have the next boss, the Vampire. Vampire is notorious in 1-player 2 controller since we don't use any magic to defeat bosses. But in 1-player 1 controller, since we do use magic, he is much less of a potential time loss. So what I'm going to be doing is well, probably will just straight up defeat him with spells here. Once again, he's one of those guys where, if given the opportunity, I will defeat him with overcharge attacks, but sometimes he just does not want to cooperate with that. And there's not really anything I can do about this. The gnome reaches level 3. So we will deal more and more damage. Alright. So this is, for example, a situation where I could try to get in an overcharge attack, which I will. Nice, actually that worked. So that allowed me to skip out on a fair few spell casts from the sprite. At the risk of losing about 5 to 6 seconds, I saved about 20-ish. So that is kind of the payoff of that risk and reward. Low risk, high reward. I would lose a few seconds trying this most of the time, but sometimes you gain a substantial amount of time just by using charge attacks instead. Alright, unfortunately, Dialogue and Thanatos and Funna, all of them just happened to get away and we have no clue where they currently are. So what we are going to do now is just continue in the plot, and as you may be able to tell, the boy was just about to charge up his weapon again. Because, well, once again, as long as the AI charge flag is set, he will constantly start charging up his weapon until I start running with himself, or when I make him run as the AI control character. That's when his charge flag gets reset. Alrighty, so we join the rebels here and they tell us, hey guys, good news, the Emperor seemed to be no longer corrupted and he wants to have peace now. That's amazing, right? Right? Of course it is. So didn't we see this situation in another game already? Actually, I think that other game was released about 2 years later. With Final Fantasy VI, the Emperor offering some, hey guys, we are going to make peace now, we no longer want to be the evil guys. And fight, we have a banquet prepared for you. But of course, they don't. No food for us, unfortunately. They just throw us into prison where we find the Metal Mantis. Metal Mantis is once again very much like the previous boss. A case of, if I can get in an overcharge attack, I try to get in at least one, but if I can get more than one, I'm going to be really happy and kill him quicker. But more so than the wall face, the Metal Mantis has so many invulnerability frames and shielding stances that it's almost impossible to do that against him. So what I do instead is I just lead the lady here into proper position, give her a barrel to completely shield her from all attacks, wait until the boy charges up his weapon, and then try to have him attack after the Mantis and swing, and hopefully doesn't defend here. There, this should work. And with the rest I will want to use up the spell charges with the sprite. And just defeat this guy with the sprite in the first place. And once again replenish the sprite's MP. This probably wasn't quite enough since the overcharge attack was rather low damage. Oh, never mind. That was actually enough. And so we go. This is how a standard battle looks. We try to get in a charge attack. It may not deal as much damage because I have to delay it until the boy can actually hit him. And so we finish him off with spells. This is your standard one player, one controller strategy for your average boss. Or at least many of them. And this will include the next boss here as well. With the difference that I will not start with a overcharge attack, I will start with spells and then try to chain in an overcharge attack right afterwards. So, alrighty. We move on. And as you can see, my AI control cactus are frantically swinging their weapon at enemies that are just in range and are stopping my progress constantly. In this case, it's actually quite alright. As in, they don't stop me for too much, but just having normal human players alongside you would be so much faster, because they would not stop your advancement on the screen for as long. Further, I need to do a lot of wide and curvy movement just to manipulate the AI control characters to move properly without getting stuck everywhere. And we move on to the bosses here, where we meet this green guy again, Marcus. He was the mech rider, and he still will be the mech rider, and we will defeat him another time. Surprise. Take me the sprite, charge up the boy's weapon, and start throwing spells. For now, until the sprite runs out of MP. This should easily deal enough damage that this is 2. The boy will be able to finish him off without too much trouble. At least that's the theory. We still need to hit, as in 40% chance to miss once again. Let's see. Alright. Unfortunately, the boy missed. 40% chance. That just kind of happens. That's kind of normal. So I do want to have the lady alive, even though this doesn't make a lot of a difference. But I want to give her as much experience as possible for the upcoming section. So, and after this entire ordeal, this is where one player, one controller and 2 controllers really branch off from each other. Aside from the wackiness of how to deal with bosses and how to do the early game to get the Mitch Mallet early, we now get access to our companion Flammy. The two-controller strategy is to just straight up go for the doppelganger area and then go on into the Tree Palace and then straight up to the Mana Fortress. We can't quite do that. What we need to do is we need to complete 2 more sections of the game in order for us to acquire Flammy. In order for us to acquire 2 more schools of spell, Darkness and Light. We could technically go for getting the School of the Moon, as in Magic School spell of the Moon as well. Let me just buy 1 more for safety. But it is not quite set in stone on whether getting Luna is faster than skipping out on Luna. Luna is the summon spirit of the moon and gives you access to some powerful buff spells. But I'm just going to skip out on Luna since that is a rather simple and consistent route. But yeah, there are about 4 or 5 rather substantial potential changes in the route that we still need to figure out whether it's faster to do one thing or the other. So it's going to be a bit of a change until we figure out the more optimal approach to this entire game. So the time will come down by at least 7-8 minutes consistently. Probably more than that in the end, for an actual run attempt though. So this is where I mentioned earlier, we visited Mara, and we would have to talk to her twice, fly away with Flammy in between to get the key to the gold tower. And we just get the key to the gold tower like this, no problem. See? So we go back to the gold city. And now that we have the key, access to the gold tower, we will just straight up use that to get Lumina. Or more specifically, try and defeat 2 bosses that are residing in here. Before that, I'm going to equip the new equipment sets that I just acquired in this town specifically too. Oops, what am I doing? That was weird. And this will increase our defense by quite a ridiculous margin, as in and you are not expected to be able to afford the equipment that you can get in the Gold City here already, as in it's really expensive. But because we have the money glitch, we don't need to worry about money anyways, so we just straight up go and get that equipment anyways, no problem. So most of the enemies will deal absolutely no damage to us at all and will be no threat. So it's even more important that I'm going to try and somehow deal with the bosses one way or another. So I actually just kind of messed up in a weird way that I've not done before. I wanted to get the lady a barrel before she gets eaten. But unfortunately that didn't quite happen. So alrighty, this is going to be rather strange here. I'm going to use a barrel now anyways. So the standard strategy is use a barrel, hope that the blue spike eats the lady, overcharge attacks, and then just use the targeting command. So when you press the B button, your barrel straight up disappears, no matter what the B button does in the current situation, whether it does anything or not. Also, a blue spike here is kind of irritating because if I'm unlucky, he will just stay up there for an extended period of time. He came back down, so that's nice. So just hope he doesn't jump back away. Engage the overcharge attack, tell the boy to attack, and then engage the overcharge attack for the sprite. I need to get at least 2 more hits in with the attack, so the blue spike will get defeated. So this will not hit with the sprite. This is a fake death animation by the blue spike, and I should have just waited with the sprite with attacking before actually unleashing the attack. He is actually completely invulnerable. So this was unfortunately a miss. Once again, about at least 35% chance at this point. The miss chance gets reduced more and more the higher level your characters get. So at this point it's more like a 35% chance to miss rather than a straight up 40% chance. But this is Blue Spike. He can almost do nothing to you because you have full Gold City equipment here. So he's more of a time waste rather than anything else. Also, even if I wanted to use magic, his magic defense is so ridiculously high that magic does barely any damage, as in it's kind of crazy how they seem to really expect you to deal with this guy just with physical attacks instead. This guy here is where the other big difference of mine and Crow's, the other current one player, one controller runner, comes in. Crow does actually use Sylph as his main magic element, which allows him to deal with this guy with just straight up spells, which technically is slower than if you get some good overcharge attacks in. However, as mentioned earlier already, that's by the way really unlucky. So yeah, but as mentioned already earlier, you need quite a bit of luck for overcharge attacks to work out in your favor all the time. Because you still need to hit them, as in, once again, 40% chance to miss. And because this is not like the 2-controller category where I can just attack once again after unleashing the overcharge attacks with the same level of attack, it is much more of a time waste every time our characters miss when they try to hit the boss. So one more hit and this should be done. So that way, with Sylph, in the long run, you gain a substantial amount of time against especially the Gorgon Bull here. He is not that dangerous once again. Barrel is overpowered and blocks every single physical attack. Physical attack is anything that is categorized based on whether your characters can unleash that spell themselves or not. So the Petrify Gas, even though you might think that's a spell, it is actually just a physical attack anyways. Wow, and we get a lot of misses here. So whenever you hear the high-pitched zing noise, that is when it was actually not a miss, but rather the Gorgon Bull right here was in a defensive stance where he cannot get hurt. I tried to time it so he would not be in his defensive stance at the time, but it's rather difficult to... There, that was good that I waited. It's rather difficult to do this. And just a bit too early. But this guy is one of the big, or probably the biggest reason as to why it's possible that using Sylph as your main damaging element is better in the long run. Even though it costs 1 more MP than Gnome. Alrighty. And this is how we complete the Gold Tower. In Gold Tower, we gain access to the Light Magic School, and that is a school that only the girl can cast spells with. This is the school where she gains her most powerful offensive spells to actually deal any substantial damage. And in reality, it is the most powerful one, yes, but it's not strong enough to warrant using just as your cookie cutter ability, since it costs 8 MP instead of just your usual 1, 2 or 3 or 4 for that matter. So it is pretty much 2 or 3 times more expensive than every other spell. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to set up a save file. This save file, just remember, this save file here has the sunken continent not risen. That's all I need. Literally. That's why I set up this save file. It will become clear as to why I do that a bit later. After that, we go on to the Temple of Darkness, where we, surprise, get the shadow element. But before we get all the way in there, I will be setting up something a bit more obscure and weird that may not make initial sense. I'm going to unequip the boy's equipment all the way. I let him get hit here. He takes some substantial damage. Then I go in here, and now I let the sprite kill the knight here on the right. Then I set myself up, oh that was too far, in a very precise position. Yeah, this should work. Let the sprite cast another spell. So those guys cast wall, which reflects spells. I'm going to cast Loosen Barrier on the lady, position the boy over here, and kill the boy by reflecting spells off the wall. So, you may be wondering, what the hell are you doing? So this is rather strange. Why would you kill your own party members? By the way, for reference, I'm casting Loosen Barrier to... Oh, it didn't actually kill him. Ah, I need to redo this afterwards. I'm casting Loosen Barrier here to level up the lady's spell school for Lumina, which is what we need later. Okay, and what I'm doing here is I revive the boy by giving him a Royal Jam. Royal Jam is a very special type of item which allows me to essentially revive a character after he already hit 0 HP and is considered to be dead. And watch the sprites and the girl's MP, or HP actually, not MP. Every time I reflect a spell off the wall of the knight, kill the boy, they gain some levels. And that is the main reason as to why I'm doing this in the first place. So this is the last one that I can... Actually, I think the reflection is already gone, so I need to redo this setup real quick. Yeah, so that was the last one. So, alright. Need to kill this guy on the right again. Oh no, don't kill her. That would mess up everything. I actually casted the spell slightly too slow over there, so I need to set it up again. I don't want to kill anyone except for the sprite. So, alright. One more step, please. That was too far. I can't target the knight if he's too far off screen. That was too far again. This is a bit of an awkward setup. Alright, there we go. So... and this is the last one. Kill off the boy and we gain a ton of levels. But that is literally the intention. We gain a ton of levels by killing off the boy again and again. So the way that works is the programmers didn't quite program this into their game correctly, because whenever you kill something or anything at all, it will award you the experience it has in the experience memory, and that includes the boy's current experience. So every single experience point he has earned so far will be contribute to both the sprite and the girl, because they are still alive, killing the boy. So we just essentially multiplied our experience by a large chunk, just killing the boy over and over and over again, until we finally managed to gain enough levels and experience to move on. So the main reason as to why I did that so often is to increase the maximum amount of magic points, and also as a secondary effect, the spell power for both the sprite and the girl. The boy's levels stayed the same, since he didn't get the experience from himself, as he straight up died to his attacks. So what I'm doing here is a barrel jump. By standing in this position, using a barrel just here, I can jump across this gap. Apparently the boss boy died again, because I forgot to equip his equipment again. Sorry, buddy. I should have equipped him with his standard equipment again, so he doesn't get killed by literally everything. And then we move on, like normal. But that is what we do there. So we just power leveled the girl and the sprite by using what is called the wall glitch. So the sprite is now substantially higher level than the boy, and his chance to hit bosses is also a fair bit higher than the boy, so I will be mainly focusing on him trying to hit bosses, like this guy here. I will give the sprite the advantage on starting the action, so to speak. Dodging. By the way, what I'm doing here is once again it's too early. I try to keep the current charge attack of the enemies by using them by switching to the character right after I want to try and retain the overcharge. So I repeatedly just use the select button to switch to a specific character. I should not have switched over there. To try and have them attack, and at the same time try to keep the current charge attack, which once again, that's a 0 to 4 frame window for me to press select and then immediately press B button. If I have a 0 frame window, there's literally nothing I can do about it, and I won't get to keep the attack. But in my opinion, it's still worth the little risk of using select to switch character for those purposes anyways. At least in specific instances, so you can potentially deal more or less double the damage. But it's way more consistent to just use the targeting command and set up your characters in a specific order instead. So, we gained the School of Magic for Darkness, Shade. We might as well seal the Mana Seed, even though we don't technically need it. It increases our magic power substantially enough that we actually do care about getting it. And after that, we just move on up to the pinnacle of this place. So what we are normally supposed to do is visit Luna in the Moon Temple, and also more walk-through wall shenanigans with targeting. We are supposed to visit Luna in the temple, in the Moon Temple. Oh, what? That's awkward. Get out of the way, please. So this bee is currently stuck in a rather awkward spot where I cannot get past it. So I had to kill it instead of just getting past it. Oh well. So yeah, either way, let's get back to the plot. What you're supposed to do is visit Luna in the Moon Palace and just gain Luna Magic, which is a detour of about 2.5 to 3 minutes, something like that. And more importantly, what it also does for us is it would give us access to rather powerful buff spells. So it's still to be determined whether getting Luna or not getting Luna is fast or not, so we will need to scout that out for the near future. But for now, I'm just straight up skipping her for essentially scientific purposes, to see whether we get some comparable times without getting Luna, compared to hopefully when Crow gets to do some runs, and when he does get Luna, since he has more experience in handling Luna's spells compared to me. Alrighty. Also, by the way, I just skipped over that little barrier that was on Jock. I completely forgot to point that out. That's so normal to me by now. That's the barrier skip. You can do that anytime, and you can do that whenever you just gain access to Flammy, which is what you do in the one controller category. But as mentioned, even though you can technically skip that, we do need the magic to progress a bit further in, because there is one other skip right after this place, essentially, which we cannot do with the lady or with just one controller. It's strictly not possible, basically. I should have pigmented the lady instead. So here, to get through this area here, you have essentially two options. You either... Oh, that might be bad. Ah, that worked. I need to keep track. You either defeat the doppelgangers by straight up damaging them, or you kill off your own characters and then revive one of the characters that got killed, because the corresponding doppelganger will just straight up disappear afterwards. So, this guy here, by the way, would be your typical sage who sends you on a quest to visit this place, visit that place, visit this place over there, because you were not ready yet. Well, apparently I was ready enough to get into this place already without him telling me, and he accepted me as, well, I guess you beat the doppelganger, so you must be ready. So now go to the Tree Palace where there are more enemies awaiting. And that's exactly where we're going. There we go. The Tree Palace includes another boss here, which is going to be a bit of an interesting challenge, to say the least. Oh, I can't do that right now. I pigment both the sprite and the girl, because they will be casting a substantial amount of spells. So as mentioned earlier, I cast Luna's shield, as an energy shield, repeatedly with the girl, just for her to level up Luna, or actually Lumina, not Luna. So her light magic spells will become stronger and stronger and stronger, so we can actually use them against some endgame bosses for as main damage purpose. Alrighty, let's see. I cast the shield here. Oh, don't attack there, buddy. Don't attack there, that's bad. That's actually potentially really bad. Him attacking, that is. Because if this Aggro-Goblin boss casts any spell, it will be a spell to reflect spells, which would be really bad for us, since our means to remove that wall spell are rather weak and slow. So I'd rather not have that. I can avoid it. Also, here I need to... How many? 3. Alright, that's going to be awkward. Oh, he's dead already. That makes it easy. Okay. Watermelon boss down. He is really weak against magic spells, as in his magic defense is super low, which normally is counteracted by him using the wall spells to reflect spells. But if you just chain cast spells on him, he basically has no chance of surviving anyways. And this fight is, I think, even faster than just using pure overcharges, because spells are so efficient against him. He's actually not weak against any specific element, his magic defense is just that low. Alrighty, we move on further into the Tree Palace, where we meet Dryad. Which, by the way, those colors seem really off to me. I guess I'm just used to the flickering of the SNES. Oh well. With Dryad, we gain quote-unquote the last of the magic schools, even though we skipped Luna, and now the Sunken Continent will rise. Remember when I set up a save file for the Sunken Continent? When it is not risen yet? Well, I'm going to make a second save file for when the Sunken Continent has actually risen just now. So, that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. And to explain what happens here is I land right next to this Nico here and save my game. That's it, that's literally all I'm doing to set up this glitch here. This Nico here is special in that it's the only place in the game where you can save at the same time you land with Flammy. What that does is the game has no idea how to properly save your save file, and it's actually corrupting the save file in a sense. Because it doesn't write any information into the location as to where you currently are at to restart you when you load the save file next. So that has two consequences. If you just try to load the save file normally, it will crash your game. But if you instead load your save file by soft resetting your console and holding the soft reset combination for multiple seconds, it will allow you to do something way more special. Like right here, I'm going to soft reset, hold for a few seconds, and now I'm going to load the save file that has not continent risen, as in the Sunken Continent is not risen yet. I'm now in the underground portion of this place, and the Sunken Continent here looks the same initially, but boom. Just to demonstrate this, it looks really strange. We don't normally do that on actual serious attempts. Then I go back outside and load the save file again that I just saved after the continent has risen. And the reason why we do this is, boom, I save warped into the middle of the Grand Palace. So that might be really confusing, but I unfortunately don't get much better of an explanation time. I will need to figure out how to explain that properly for an actual marathon run when we get around to doing that. Either way, a short version, we go really fast and skip the main portion of the underground palace just by doing it like this. Alright. Here I actually forgot to do something. I need to replenish my supplies real quick. So this should have... Alright, we have fairy walnuts again. I'm going to give both the fairy walnut to Sprite and the girl. That will replenish their MP, and we can just move on now. So throwing away equipment in places like this is usually just me refreshing my items in my inventory. That way I have a way easier time to not having to buy all the consumable items again and again and again. Snowman! No longer snowman. Apparently that doesn't matter when you get snowman here. Interesting. So, as you may be able to see, I'm also just casting all kinds of spells against those orbs over here, and then I always cast a Loosen Barrier. Loosen Barrier is literally just to level up Lumina's spell to increase her potency in later on, and the other spells, those are the main reasons as to why we even got those elements in the first place. As in, we need them to open up passages left and right in the Grand Palace here. The one-player 2 controller has actually a rather nifty skip to go backwards through the Grand Palace, and that way you can just straight up skip going in here in the first place. As in, it goes literally backwards through the Grand Palace with the 2 controller strategy. But yeah, this also shows off a fair bit more of the game, which is also quite neat with just one controller. So, alright, here. This is where we need Lumina. This is the literal reason as to why we even go into the Gold City in the first place. If we didn't need to activate this orb, as in if we found a different way to get past the upcoming area, we would actually do that. And same here with Shade. If we found a way to not having to use Shade, this would make it way easier to skip a lot more with just one controller. But at the same time it would also get more and more similar to the 2 controller category. I should have equipped that weapon with the lady, that was a mistake. So these stairs here specifically are not there when you don't activate those orbs. That stair set here, that's Lumina, the one on the left was Shade, or the other way around. So here is something else we do right now. This is a rather nifty trick. So the game checks for 2 things for you to be able to eligible a roll patrol jump. 1, you need to stand in the correct place after gathering a party, and 2, you need to have the whip equipped. That's it. It doesn't matter which rope pole you hit, as long as you stand in a valid place, so to speak. So that's what we are doing here. Oh, that's why. I was wondering why the boy was not starting to charge up his weapon. I forgot to set his setting again after switching his weapon earlier. Which is why I said I should not have switched his weapon. So the sprite just managed to hit this guy here twice. Unfortunately, this guy is also kind of notorious for using Cure Water just with a high enough level for it to make a substantial difference in terms of how much damage I have to deal to him. There we go. Last run I had to hit him about 3 or 4 times until he died. In the optimal case scenario, you only need to hit him twice. But that's kind of tricky to pull off with this kind of setup. And we move on through the Great Grand Palace, where essentially this is where the 2 controller category ends up right after Doppelgangers. And we had to do all that other stuff with Shade, etc. And this is my favorite boss of the game, Hexas. Hexas is interesting in terms of how she works. So she has 4 different forms. Those forms she can acquire by me having a specific distance away position from her, based on distance. I have the lady now barreled, and once again, all physical attacks and abilities are completely negated whenever I have a barrel equipped on a character. And as long as I'm not pressing the B button outside of the menu, the barrel will actually stay and never go away. So this is how I can just straight up keep the barrel equipped on the lady without having to remove it. And boom, Hexes down. So Hexes, depending on where you're standing, she has 4 different forms. Her physical form is the one she starts in, which is completely negated by a barrel. Then she has a fire form, an ice form, an earth form, where she casts various spells, and is actually quite a menace, because she also has fairly high magic defense. But yeah, in this case it just basically straight up doesn't matter. Alrighty, I'm going to be casting some more Lumina spells until the Mech Rider arrives at the bottom here of the arena. Replenish the lady's MP as well. And this is where we start the battle, basically. So Mech Rider is pretty... he's really stupid. That's the short version. So what he tries to do is... he tries to get onto your vertical position in terms of positioning. Ah, that was awkward. And what that means essentially is that he tries to get all the way down to your vertical position, your level. But he kind of fails to do so in a rather, let's say, spectacular fashion. Because his hitbox is just strictly larger than my character's hitbox. So it's kind of difficult for him to get anywhere close to being on my vertical level, so to speak. So I can just chill at the bottom of the arena and he will never ever attack me on his own volition. He will only cast reactionary spells like the wall or the speed up, which are supposed to actually do more than what it does right now. What I mean by that is he actually has an AI script for when he does not have any buff, and for some reason, wall does not actually count as a buff for him. So that means whenever he has no buff, like speed up for example, he will try to cast speed up on himself, but because he has a wall which reflects spells, speed up bounces off of his own wall and goes to one of my characters, and he never receives the buff of speed up. So he always will just go, oh, I don't have a buff, let's cast the buff first. If he had a buff on him one way or another, as in any form of buff, he would start using really devastating physical abilities that actually quite hurt quite a bit. But he never does that. Well, we are completely safe. And this is where the one controller category used to go to the Pure Lands and hack the way all the way through the Pure Lands in effort of... oh, where am I going? In effort of... being able to enter the Mana Fortress that is currently flying around. The two controller category had a method to circumvent that since quite a while already. However, the method for the one controller category has only been invented relatively recently. So what I'm doing here is called weapon grafting. I still now have the appearance of the boomerang, but it actually uses the sword weapons level and abilities. So with that, I use the boomerang from a very, very specific point, throw it at the rope hole, that activates the rope hole event, and then before it reaches the rope hole, I call Flammy. So what that does is the rope hole event is scheduled to be happening right after I activate Flammy. But because Flammy was just there and it tries to execute that event as soon as possible, the event that normally sends you away from the Mana Fortress because the barrier is too strong, we need to find another way in, we need to power up the sword first, never actually happens. So we just completely skip that little cutscene by doing this. This is something we do since quite a while with the one controller category, but only was recently discovered for the... This is something we do since quite a while with the two controller category, but this is only something we've discovered recently for the one controller category. That way around. I think I said it the wrong way around, but that's okay. So yeah, this is the big reason as to why we need substantially less varied spell schools and spell levels to deal with bosses and enemies, and have more freedom to choose now which spells and levels and whatnot we want to get. And this is also the reason as to why the routing for this game is a little bit up in the air until we manifest the route a bit more and test and figure out the more optimal approaches for various places. It might be even that many of the approaches might be more or less equally fast, it just depends on where you set the risk or how risky you want to make the route in the first place. Which is actually quite neat, so we can make it rather safe for a marathon setting without losing particularly much time or effort in the first place. Oh, that was the wrong character to pick me there. That's okay. So and this is the reason, this guy here, as to why we level up Lumina. Lumina, level 2, is stronger than level 5 Gnome from the sprite. It costs a ton of magic, and so we need to replenish the lady's MP rather frequently, to say the least. But it is really, really fast in comparison to just using only ever spells that are not super effective against this guy. Also, this is the first run where I'm testing to gain even more levels than usual. For having a higher total mana pool to cast one more Loosened Beam in sequence before I need to replenish magic. Okay, what I tried to do there was also chain in another physical attack, overcharge attack, but I'm not exactly sure about the timing yet and how to do that properly. Well, that doesn't help. And they used it. So it seems like... By the way, that's the main reason why I lost a bunch of time on Lime Slime. I invested more time into getting more levels for the sprite than the girl. In fact, exactly 3 more spell casts. Which, because I had a bit of an awkward setup, cost me a bit more than a minute. Which in reality should only cost about 20 seconds. Or more like 30 actually, to be fair. But either way, I just gained about a minute because the lady had a way more efficient way to regain MP and also dish out spell damage. So that's really nice. Oh my god. Please get past that wolf. That werewolf is really powerful. By the way, we still have basic equipment from the Gold City, which is really outdated by now, in case you didn't know that. It's really outdated. Here I wait until those 3 slimes split up into, well, 3. that allows me to skip any enemy that is further up ahead in this area here. And we just move into this place, where I have to be a bit careful about the positioning for my characters here. I cast wall on the lady herself. The reason for that is pretty straightforward. Wall will allow her to reflect spells in case the acid rain happens to hit her instead of the boss. And other than that, I'm just going to wail away on the boss here until he dies. I need to have actually really good positioning for the boss not to be too far away from the overcharge attacks, but at the same time the character's not I need to wait here. There we go. The character's not attacking on their own volition without me catching it, so to speak. Because if they do that, they will attack way too early. I used the Mitch Mallet to negate the spell damage from Acid Rain on the other characters. So far there was one reflected spell back onto the Dread Slime, which is by the way quite nice, because he reduces his own defense and also deals a little bit of damage to himself. The reason why I say it's exactly one so far is because I have 2 charges of a wall that reflect back onto him. I was a bit too slow there, the sprite didn't already started to attack on his own volition, unfortunately. So this is the second one. Here I need to cast Wall on the lady herself. Oh, again, if I didn't run out of MP already. Alright. I missed the boy's window and he attacked on his own. So here I need to use the boys menu to prevent the sprite from taking any damage. That damage, by the way, is pretty much lethal for our characters. But the main issue is really that it just interrupts their attacks, so they can no longer completely finish their attacks in the first place. So they would be interrupted while they are attacking, which is pretty bad, because we lose out on a lot of damage in that. Early. This might have killed him. Oh, it did. Okay, not too terrible of a fight, could be slightly better though. This is one of the fights where having Luna will help you substantially, because you can cast Luna onto the boss by reflecting it off your own wall. What that does is it gives the boss the Lunar boost, which substantially increases the damage you deal physically, but Dreadslime never attacks you physically, so that's a non-issue, and also reduces his evasion to 0, as in he will have absolutely no evasion anymore afterwards once the Luna boost lands, which means all of your physical attacks will connect with him, no matter what. On top of that, Luna also provides you a buff, potential buff that is, for guaranteeing critical hits, which will mean all the attacks will also deal 999 damage. The issue with Lunar Boost, as in the critical hit, is that it's only just literally 1 critical hit for each and every one of the attacks. Spell casts, so you would have to recast it rather frequently, unless you somehow manage to level up Luna along the way, which is something I'm not familiar with, Which is why I also first wanted to try out this route where we don't use Luna. Ah, that's a bit unfortunate. So for reference, this would be normally completely lethal for all of our characters. Also, let's see whether they like balloons or not. But we have Gold City equipment armor. In the 1 player 2 controller category, you don't get Gold City equipment. And you will just straight up die from pretty much anything those enemies there throw at you. So that's a bit unhealthy. But it still works in our favor in this case, since Gold City equipment does not reduce a whole lot of damage, but it's just enough that they don't get one-shot. So that's nice. And we come up onto the second to last battle here. This will be against Dark Lich. Or more specifically, Thanatos himself. Interesting, Crow. It's not technically a glitch, I don't think, but I don't think it's intended to take over a charge attack from an AI control character. So we'll probably just have to make a vote for it. I don't mind either way, but I would need to think about it at the same time. That's interesting. Thank you. So, alright, ladies and gentlemen. I actually forgot to pick me the lady. Which means this is going to be... Actually, I didn't, did I? I didn't. So, the lady being pigment here allows us to cast spells really quickly onto the Dark Lich. Dark Lich is a bit of an oddball in terms of his stats. He has, I think, about 2000 more HP than the previous boss. Which also means he takes a lot of a beating, and this is one of the big reasons why you want to level Lumina in the first place. You can defeat this guy with just straight up using gnome spells. It's not that bad. But Lumina is just that much more efficient against him because it does literally double damage, while leveling up within a reasonably fast time frame. So I think this battle should be faster than using overcharge on one controller no matter what. Actually, wasn't this where I should have used 4-4-4-4-4 instead of... No, actually I have 5 now. That was 3-3-3-3 instead. That's okay, I was just thinking. Either way, the Dark Lich falls really easily to our light magic once it is sufficiently high it's trained, and we move on. So, one last obstacle stays between us, or stands between us and victory. And that is going to be the Mana Beast itself. Story-wise, I'm not sure you caught that, but Dialog sacrificed himself because he didn't want to be the host body for Thanatos, the big bad evil guy. And so he set the Dark Lich free and we defeated Thanatos through Thorn, but at the same time unfortunately happened to lose the lady's boyfriend. Pretty much. At least I assume that's what it is, or lover. One way or another, unfortunately we kind of came too late. So what I did just there is I cast the Mana Sword spell onto the boy's Mana Sword. What that does is it revives the Mana Sword, surprise. But the way I did it specifically is I casted the secondary Mana Sword spell slightly delayed, so I could actually enter this cutscene here just as the sprite was about to finish casting his portion of the Mana Sword spell. So that way, it guarantees two things. One, I will be able to cast Undine as or a saber weapon onto the boy's weapon, so it will stay the Mana Sword forever and just override the timer where it would run out. So that's a glitch. And also secondary, it will skip about a 20 to 24 second cutscene where the Mana Sword finally gets revived and unlocked. And you also might be wondering, do you really need the Mana Sword? The answer is no, you don't. But it's rather easy and quick to set up also, I need to. It's rather easy and quick to set up, and the main reason why we set it up in the first place... Probably not necessary, but who cares? The main reason why we set it up in the first place is because this allows us to have the Mana Sword, which, as the only weapon in the game, has always a 100% chance to hit bosses or enemies. If not 100%, it's at least very close to that. So here I cast Acid Rain to lower the mana base defense for the first cycle here. Unfortunately, the mana beast comes from above instead of from below, so that means it will take a bit longer until we can actually attack it. Also, I will refresh Acid Storm here. A bit too early. For it to keep the lower defense for a little while longer. So, as mentioned, the Mana Sword has a 100% chance to hit and also a substantially stronger attack. So I can just attack with the boy here very early, whereas the sprite has to wait a fair bit longer until he can finally start attacking with his portion of the overcharge attack. Also here, once again, I try to retain the attack charges. For the boy and the sprite to unleash a secondary overcharge attack, which I have a 0 to 4 frame window. Alright, that was actually a pretty decent round here of damage. So, ironically, the one player, one controller category has probably the hardest mana beast fight out of all of them compared to the one player, two controller category. Or even the glitchless category has a way easier mana beast fight than the one player, one controller category, because it has Luna sufficiently highly leveled for other purposes as well to deal with bosses. So here I just retained the boy's charge flag. I managed to keep the charge too. Nice. Oh, that's slightly awkward. The boy shouldn't die, preferably. I have 3 left. 2 actually, that's okay. should use barrels instead of few of those cups of wishes. That would be slightly faster. Okay. The boy would probably not die here, actually. Yeah, he survived, that's okay. So I cast spells at a specific timing, or at least I try to, in order for me to avoid taking a bunch of damage from Buffy's, or, well, not Buffy, the Mana Beast attacks here. Also, once again, I keep control of the boy, here specifically. Because this allows me to make him use his charge attack early again, instead of having to wait all the way until the Mana Beast is in reach for the AI control cactus to engage in battle. Alright, that actually worked out quite fine with that sequencing. This is one of the big reasons why you want to have 2 overcharge attack weapons instead of just 1. Okay. You're not going to die here. We still have Loosened Barrier. This is a part of the commentary, by the way, in case you're wondering, which I still need to practice and figure out a bit better. Still not entirely sure what I would say during these parts. I usually will need to focus a fair bit, so I don't accidentally die. But overall, it's actually not that difficult to do. Oh, there we go. Maybe I should also keep count of the amount of damage I did to the thing. Victory! At last, we win. Okay. That was a pretty decent Mana Beast fight compared to the previous ones. I got to retain quite a few of my overcharge attacks. But this also kind of shows how much more time we can save in this category with just really mostly optimizations. My gameplay was also not that great, as in I feel like I can do better. Also, I'm reasonably certain some of Crow's strategies are probably just strictly better than mine. So we will need to figure out which portions we want to implement where to figure out those things. So there's that. 2 hours 41 minutes 30 seconds. I submitted the time as 2 hours 40 to HDQ, but I'm confident that this is going to be a reasonable goal to do once we figure out all those things and practice it a fair bit. So there's that. I really like this ending music. Good evening, everybody. So yeah, sorry guys, thank you for understanding. This was a attempt at a full commentary run that I tried to do here. So I didn't pay particularly much attention in chat, but I hope you enjoyed it. Is it a PB right now? Yeah, it is actually. PB/record if you want. Still, I feel like some of Crow's strategies are probably just strictly superior. I would like to see him do the early game with 3 characters instead of just 2. Because I'm really curious how well that will turn out. PB right now is 3 months. What? Peanut butter jelly time? Thank you very much, Steve Parker. I really appreciate those kind words. Thanks a ton. What is the record? You see it on the left. Can still be optimized. But not a bad run overall. Some secrets to improve a speedrun? Indeed. We just slowly work our way up the food chain, so to speak, figure out more and more tricks, and interestingly enough, in the case of Seeker of Mana, it just happens to be more and more interesting the further we get our run. As in, the more tricks we figure out, the more interesting the run specifically gets. At least the one controller category currently is the most intriguing one to me, since there is so much potential and variation, how it can work out, which spell school you choose as your main damage dealing one, how you deal with when you get the opportunity to use overcharge attacks, how we try to retain overcharge attacks, risk versus reward, whether you don't do it. So there's that, yeah. It doesn't seem super optimized to be a record. It isn't, because we recently-ish got the Pure Land skip for the one controller category, and that kind of threw off everything, as in the route is still very much up in the air now because of it. If you want to see a really good one controller run that includes the Pure Lands, I recommend you watch Crow's Speed Demos Archive submission, where he had a really strong run, with one small exception in the Grand Palace, but overall it was a crazy strong run. Just for one controller, including the Pure Lands. And both the preparation for the Pure Lands, with using more magic spells, etc., and also visiting the Pure Lands themselves, that is actually quite the achievement to get the time that he did. Which is also why I think this time here, once it's properly optimized and well done, it can go something like below 2 hours and 30 minutes. Thank you, Arik Radis. I need a second food box. Current one busted, or what? But yeah, there's so much to explain in this game. I will really need to properly plan out the commentary. I'm so much more used to the one-player, two-controller commentary, but this one has even more to it. And I'm not used to doing that yet, so we'll figure it out as we go. Yeah, what Crow said. But that's also kind of why I'd like to point out that Crow's old run that includes the Pure Lands, that one was really awesome. I watched that actually at least twice, and recommend. crescent moon. What is my sum of best? I'm not even sure that would be accurate, but let's see. Sum of best. 233.24. Yeah, as I said, it can reasonably well go below 230. Maybe that's a bit ambitious. But certainly 233 is achievable within reasonable means once we optimize just at least a strategy. Which begs the question whether this might be another Final Fantasy adventure where there are various strategies that turn out to be very close to each other in time. Also, by the way, for anyone wondering what the moon stuff is in the chat about, this last screen here has a chance to be either a full moon, crescent moon, or a 2/3 moon. We get a full moon today, which is very nice. Actually, I'm starting to like the full moon better rather than the crescent moon for some reason. So this is really nice. $230 is our current rough estimate. Pretty much, yeah. There are actually not that many Secret of Mana speedrunners in the first place. Secret of Mana, a lot of people really remember as their favorite game of their childhood one way or another, but speedrunner-wise there are barely any. And I would say it's mostly due to what, who was it, background guy said. Secret of Mana is a really nice game, but it didn't age very well compared to games like Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy VI or games like that also have proper sequels, or Earthbound for that matter, that also have a cult following, proper sequels, and also just generally, well, that's why they have larger speedrunning communities. Among Secret of Mana, we are basically just 4 or 5 runners one way or another, and most of them don't even run the same categories all the time. My pleasure, Eldrist. Thank you for being around. Thank you, everybody. Technically, Magic